understanding how humidity impacts the system is really important, right? And you see this in Florida where it's super humid. There's a lot of people in those areas that have issues with mold and mildew, and your air conditioning is working extremely hard. Well, it's not only cooling the air, it's pulling the humidity out of the air, and that's where being able to take that condensation, that because that's what that coil's doing, right? We use the example of the soda can outside; it's going to sweat, right? So that process and getting that out of the system is really important, making sure that works properly. Um, but there's another component to humidity. So in the summertime in South Jersey, it gets pretty hot and it gets pretty humid. The size of the system and making sure the system is sized appropriately. So I think a lot of people have this sort of thought process that the bigger tonnage unit is somehow better. It's going to be colder, but it's not a bigger is better type scenario. It really needs to be sized appropriately. And there's a couple things that are going to come out of this. One, it's going to work more efficiently, right? Two, you really don't want a larger ton unit because it's going to be more expensive. So it doesn't mean smaller is better. The right one is the right one. And that's something that we can help you through. It's pretty much a mathematical formula, and you have to understand the load that's on the house so that you can appropriately size the system. And there's different types of systems that do different types of things. Some of the more efficient ones are different things have to be taken into consideration. So humidity is a really important factor. The size of the system is huge. And then with humidity, with condensation, with those things happening within your system, you have the potential to get mold and mildew in that part of the system where that coil that gets super cold because it's dark in there, right? So you have a mixture of damp and dark. What do you get? You get mold. Now, I'm not trying to scare anybody with this. The type of mold you get in your coil inside your system is called brown mold. It will create allergy type symptoms. Some people are way more sensitive to stuff like that. Other people, they won't even notice. But things like air scrubbers and blue lights, it kills that. Now, if you have a bunch of brown mold inside your A coil and you install an air scrubber, it's not going to fix the problem. You have to remove it, clean it, so it's not a cure all. But that's why we recommend when you install new equipment, maybe install the air scrubber, and it will eliminate the potential for these types of things. It can get really hot and humid here in the summertime, so it's important that you're taking that into consideration and understand how that impacts the system and what types of how you can combat that, prepare for it, and how it impacts the system. You shouldn't see water in the house. All the condensation happens inside the system. So in a normal furnace setup system, you have the furnace, it looks like a rectangular box. And then on top of that is a smaller box. That's the coil, right? So the coil connects to that outside condensing unit. And to really simplify it, what's happening is that coil, those copper tubes inside of there are getting really cold. And because they're getting really cold, just like taking a cold can of soda and putting it outside on a table, it's going to sweat, right? It's going to sweat. So the more humid it is, the more it's pulling that humidity. It's dehumidifying. Your air conditioner is dehumidifying your home. But that condensation needs to go into the pan, into the condensate pump. That condensate pump needs to work properly. The tube that goes out of the condensate pump where it's pumping it out needs to be clear of debris. So when that fails and you start seeing water, there's a good chance, that's what's happening, right? Especially if it's super hot outside, super humid outside. So we would test the condensate pump to make sure it's working in a tune-up. We would look at the tube where the condensate pumps the water and the condensation out. If that tube is slimy and full of gunk, we can clear it out. So yeah, I mean, preventative maintenance will, it's not perfect, right? I know a lot of people will say, we guarantee, we'll guarantee it'll never break down. That's, I don't think that that's completely realistic, but the maintenance is going to significantly reduce the chance of those things happening as long as we're doing our job the right way and we're being extremely thorough. A home feeling hot, even when the thermostat is temperature is being satisfied. Let's say you set it to 70 degrees and it says 70, you're like, oh, it feels hot. Usually that's a humidity thing. That could have something to do with the sizing of the unit because it's the way it cycles. If the unit has to, let's say it's oversized and it's cooling very quickly and shutting off, you're going to get these kind of swings where if it's sized more appropriately, you're going to have less swings. There's newer style of equipment where you get into like dual speed fans and variable speed fans where like a traditional system, the fan just comes on and blows on high speed, and you'll get these kind of more swings in temperature where you get to two stages. You have a low stage and a high stage. So the system will sort of modulate back and forth using these stages because one, it's more efficient that way. You're not spending the energy to make the fan go as hard. And then the variable speeds will actually modulate based on what it feels the system needs. So airflow, sizing, those types of things all impact that. So if you're feeling hot, but it's satisfying temperature, especially if it's, let's say you have it on 68 and it still feels warm. So one thing you can do is you can just get like a really cheap like battery powered like humidistat and like stick it on the wall right next to the thermostat. Some of the newer thermostats even will measure humidity, and that'll give you an indication of is it pulling the humidity out. And if it's not, then that's that would be where we would start looking.